Hey, everybody. Welcome back if you're returning. Welcome if you're new here. It is Friday, and kind of enjoyed last Friday using the tarot instead of the oracle card. So we're going to do that again, and it is the the Light Seers Tarot. Let's see what card we can get for today. See if we can get a feel for the energy. April has been, uh, I would say, better than March, and we're out of the retrogrades and energy's moving forward. But I think when the energy started moving forward, we all kind of got a heads up on some stuff we need to address. So, not saying April was easy, but I think that April, in at least here in the northern hemisphere in the spring season, April is typically rainy, and you've got new things blossoming and blooming, new life coming about. And I think that's very symbolic of how the energy was this April. And we have the Devil and the Nine of Wands. So the Nine of Wands is really kind of being in a self imposed prison. Um, Wands are fire, and it's almost like, if you can see on the card where she's got the wand in her hand, but the other wands are in front of her almost like a fence. It's like wanting to take action, but holding yourself back. And the Devil is a major arcana card, and it's our addictions, our downfalls, our shortcomings, the things that are not serving us, but we will not let go of. And typically speaking, that is what holds us back. It can be faulty belief systems. It can be just behavior patterns that do not serve us, where we just keep hitting the same stumbling block over and over. And to share with you, trying to think of his name, Wayne Dyer. So Wayne Dyer tells a story of a friend of his who went to a convention, and it was a personal growth seminar type thing, and they were given a 3x5 card and asked to explain their life in 5 sentences. And what she wrote was, I walked down the number one. I walked down the street. There was a big hole. I fell in the hole. It took me forever to get out. I finally got out of the hole. Number two, I walked down the street, the same street. I knew there was a hole. I fell in. This time it didn't take as long to get out, but it was still hard. Three, I walked down the same street. I tried to walk around the hole. I still fell in. I got out a little faster this time, but it was still hard. Four, I walked down the same street. Again, I know there's a hole. I try to walk around. I still fall in. This time I get out quickly. Five, I walk down a different street. And it seems very simple and yet very profound. And I did shorten it a bit, but it talks about how, although we get better at handling the same situation over and over and over, we don't have to handle it over and over and over. Her number five, I walk down a different street, is so profound. We need to quit walking down the street with the big hole in it. Even if we get really good at getting out of it, let's walk down a different street. And that would be that devil of our behavior patterns that aren't serving us. even though we may have gotten really good at figuring out how to deal with them, um, we're still doing them. And it's just a habit. That's all that is. The devil is just our negative habits, our our repeating thoughts, our repeating behaviors, and the ones that aren't helping us at all. And that is what creates this self-imposed prison of being unable to take action because we have lost our ability to trust ourselves. And when we can't trust ourselves, we're afraid to move forward because we don't even know that we're moving towards the right thing. And like we talked about earlier in the week, the not for you. Um, After you have pursued and invested in multiple things that are not for you, it's real easy to get stuck here. And repeatedly going places we didn't want to go just feeds this guy. Feeds it. Um, when we are in a place where we are beginning to recognize what those patterns are, what those behaviors are, we need to find a new street because a habit is just something that we've learned to do by repetition. And then it becomes our default. And if you catch yourself in moments where, you know, you react in the same way over and over and over, you respond in the same way over and over, and you're not happy with the result, it's that moment of reaction or response that we need to look at. And why are we doing this? What is the trigger? What is the source of this response? And it can be defensiveness. It can be, you know, it can be something that happened in our childhood. And when another situation pops up that pokes that wound, we respond in a way that generally is detrimental to ourselves. Now, we don't necessarily see that in the moment. We feel like we're responding out of a place of uh, justifiable protection because this old wound just got poked open. Well, the situation may not be what we're perceiving it as because, again, our perception is through our own personal experience and our ability to see the situation for what it is. And a big part of personal growth is learning to take responsibility when the fault lies within us and being able to recognize that because we tend to look to our external environment for the source of our unhappiness or the source of our problems. Or it's also more comfortable to believe that the problems are outside of us. When we recognize and realize that the problem lies within us, that is so much more empowering because that gives us the opportunity to fix the problem. Because if it's outside of us, we can't control that. We can't change other people. We can't change other situations. We can frustrate ourselves to no end trying. But when we recognize that the real problem, the real source of the issue is within us, because our behavior typically is the thing that's causing the problem. Whether we're accepting something that is not correct for us, we don't have proper boundaries in place to protect our time, energy, and resources. If we are not taking care of ourselves, and so we're not functioning at our best, when you are ill, tired, dehydrated, not well nourished, the list goes on and on of the ways that we push ourselves when we are not in a good place, when our body really needs rest, rejuvenation, potentially medication. You know, all of our systems work together And if we are not taking care of our physical vessel, our mental health, our emotional health, and again, we talked about earlier this week, some of that is biology. There could be something going on inside of you that is keeping you from being able to function at your best, whether it's how you're perceiving things, whether it's hormonal. There's so many systems in our body that can get out of whack and leave us in a state of feeling very out of control and very victimized by our environment, when in fact it's just our perception of it because we're out of balance. Some of it is our own ability to manage our emotions, to manage our self-care, establish the boundaries. Those are all things that we have control over. Whereas with the biological issue, you really don't have control over that. Um, and that's why I wanted to bring that up this week specifically, is that if you're in a good physical state, then a lot of our mental and emotional are things that we just have to make different choices. We have to be more aware of. If it's something that's happening because of a chemical imbalance in your body, or an invasion of some other organism into your body, there are so many things that can affect us. Don't frustrate yourself to no end and feel like a failure because you can't do the exercises that we've talked about, like with reframing and things like that. Because if you're chemically off, it's not going to work. You got to fix that first. So if you're in this position where you're feeling afraid to move forward based on your past experience, if you can identify the behavior patterns, and they'll be there, they'll be subtle, because we see each situation differently. And because of that, we may not realize that there is an underlying pattern of behavior in each of these situations that we have perpetuated. And then the next layer, why are we doing this? What's behind that? How did I feel emotionally as this was happening? Where did those emotions come from? And again, it's one of those things where you really, if you journal and can kind of write down your feelings as you go through it, that makes it easier to go back and see those patterns. Or if you're able to sit back and reflect on different situations and see where, I thought these dynamics were different, but they really weren't. What happened here, and how is it similar to here? What were the similarities, and not so much in the outer situation, what was happening within you in those situations? And if you can identify what triggers, what was consistent in each scenario that was similar, and then take that other step back and what made that happen? Like, where did that emotion come from? Why was that feeling there? Why was I seeing it this way? What happened to make me believe whatever you believed about that situation? Like, either A, this was a great job, or this was a great person, or this had to happen. And especially if you feel victimized and like you had no power or control over it, because generally speaking, that's either a boundary issue, or because when we feel victimized, a lot of times it's something where we have felt driven from our own expectations, or expectations placed on us previously as a child in other situations of what our behavior should be. And we feel like we had been forced into this action in this situation and now feel victimized by it. But as an adult, it's your choice. What you do as an adult is a choice. And that falls back on boundaries and knowing when to say no. What is your comfort zone of how much you're going to give? Because once you agree to it and you choose it, That's your responsibility, and whatever the outcome is, you chose it and have to take responsibility for that. So, and this feels very discombobulated while I'm saying it, so I hope it's making sense. A lot of times we blame other people for the choices that we make because we feel like they expected it, when really that was not the case. It was our own expectation of ourselves that drove the behavior, and it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, so now we're mad. And again, you can't be mad at someone else for what you choose. Now, there may be underlying issues, especially if this pattern repeats, and that's what I'm saying you need to look at and address is that devil. Before you believe that you just can't trust yourself to function or make good choices, that devil could even be, like I said, a biological issue that you haven't been aware of because it was a slow progression into your life and you didn't realize that that physical problem was causing the situations that kept recurring. And once you take the time to really evaluate why things turned out the way they did and where did the expectations come from, where did the responses come from, what triggers were involved, what behavior is similar, where could that have been stemming from, either subconscious programming, beliefs, behavior patterns, addictions, whatever it may be, when you resolve that problem, and again, even if you can't immediately resolve it, if you can identify it and raise your awareness of it, then you can address it. And it may take time to resolve, but one, if you identify that there has been a biological issue causing you to act like a lunatic, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself. One. And two, you can actually manage it in a way where you feel much more in control of the outcomes. Because once you identify it and raise that awareness, whether it's a behavior pattern, biological issue, a lack of boundaries, when you start to identify the source of the problem, take accountability for it, apologize if you need to, but then focus on the underlying issue and resolving it. Because then you disempower this guy, the devil, the repeating patterns, the things holding you back, the issues, the darkness, the confusion, all of that bullshit that has caused you to feel like you can't function. Well, once you address that underlying issue, that fence falls down because you now have a deeper understanding of why things happened the way they did, the part that you played in it, or what was underlying the actual problem. And you can move forward with much more confidence, knowing just from the awareness, even if you haven't resolved it yet, knowing that, okay, this is an issue. This is what I need to look out for. When I start to feel like this, I need to take a step back and check myself before I wreck myself because I'm falling into that place. So, and this is something that has come up for me. And as I mentioned Monday, I've been going through this journey with the mold illness, and just within the last couple of months, I had developed a second mold in my brain. Um, and it's not a consistent thing as far as how it affects me, but there are things that can make it worse. And I am now cognizant of how much it impacts me and when to be, I guess, I'm recognizing when it affects me and being able to have that awareness and also knowing what situations are going to be more difficult and how to kind of protect myself and those around me in those moments, and to a degree just avoiding being in that scenario, because for me it is a biological thing and it's just a time allowing time to pass for things to heal and be removed as the treatment continues. But and that's why I was kind of pushing the biological thing, because prior to that, it was a matter of correcting my thoughts and beliefs and things like that. Well, then when this mold thing happened, um, that wasn't working anymore. And I didn't know there was a biological issue. And that can really set you back when you've been making progress and you have all this great information and it works for you and it works for other people. And then all of a sudden everything falls apart and you think, well, what the hell? And you get that nine of wands where you're like, I don't even know what to do now. So trust that you're not crazy. Whether it's biological or not, you're not crazy. It's always a matter of awareness. And once we have that awareness, which can be hard won, because awareness typically comes through making mistakes and screwing things up, and then finding the pattern because you've done it more than once, and realizing that, okay, so apologize where you need to apologize, even if it's to yourself. Most importantly, if it's to yourself, because I'm sure you beat yourself up through the whole process. Don't be afraid to take action. Once you identify what's the underlying cause of the repeated issues, and you start to work on that, even if you don't have it resolved yet, once it's identified, again, you have the awareness to move forward with confidence and courage and trust in yourself that you're going to recognize it. You're going to know. And you're going to have to put things in place to protect yourself in those moments, ways to make space when you're feeling that like iffy, I don't know, am I slipping back into that devil pattern? Whatever works for you, whether it's making an excuse to leave the environment for a moment so you can get your thoughts back together, or just giving yourself a mental line that you can tell yourself in those moments. Because what I found for me in my situation is like, that is not a safe place for my brain to go. That is not reality. And I am not entertaining that thought. It's like, kick it out of my head. Like, no, you're not welcome here. And so again, find something that works for you in those moments where you start to feel that discomfort of the old response, the old trigger, the old reaction. And then know that with the awareness is power. Once you're aware, you can be proactive about not repeating, not falling into the trap. That awareness is priceless. When you get to that point, just legit be grateful. You now have power over the situation, and you can knock that fence down and move forward with confidence, knowing that I got this. So I hope this helps, and I will talk to you soon.